Okay. Welcome to the live stream. I'm going to cover a lot today. From where I've been, because I haven't been able to post lately, but I'm going to mostly focus on one job today. That would be a Bushmills Irish whiskey collaboration with Peaky Blinders. This was one of the most fun events I've photographed in a long time. To a degree, every time I shoot an event, it's all kind of the same. I go into photographer mode. I'm less of a participant. Just because I'm there doesn't mean I am one. And so I kind of I don't want to say it's robotic, but I go into that mode. So I'm going to talk about what the objective on this job was. I'm going to talk about stylizing images, how to do it tastefully. I'm going to discuss how I actually achieved the look I achieved, because this is a more stylized job than my usual job. I don't stylize my images generally, and when I do, I choose to do it in a natural way. So I might shoot to match a certain aesthetic, but I'm not going to throw really tacky filters on my photographs, and I'll get into why. A quick note, if you are on Patreon, you can actually go to my Patreon page and you can see the entire gallery of what I've already delivered. What I'm going to be doing today is going through all of the images and looking for selects for social media, future video content possibly, etc. The video you saw in the beginning was part of the job. I've talked a little bit about how I'm personally not a fan of hybrid shooting. In fact, I just really generally won't hybrid shoot. I believe that there is a ton of crossover between photography and videography, but I don't really believe in splitting focus. I really think they take two different frames of mind, and going back and forth, it's doable, but I prefer not to. I prefer to do the absolute best with my photography as possible. And so what I do is I will use videographers, and typically I have a few editors I work with as well, people I really trust who I know can get the job done and accurately, fairly, whatever, represent my brand that I've worked really hard to build. This job, I do have a highlight video that I'll look into showing at the end if people are interested. I did the edit myself this time because I had a really fast turnaround time. That wasn't going to be met unless I did it myself. Okay, so let's get into the work. So starting off, the client did give me a really extensive shot list. Truthfully, nothing on the shot list was anything I would not have gotten on my own. I'm very thorough. One of my main objectives as an event photographer is to maximize the coverage, get as much coverage as possible, which does not mean more photographs. In fact, it's like a ratio of quality and quantity, right? You want quantity so long as it's a high quality. All right, so these first few images, I'm going to kind of quickly go through. These aren't really anything I'm going to use in social media, but I do think there's teachable moments here. So here we have three somewhat similar images, but if you look carefully, they're actually quite different, and I'm covering all bases. If you look at the candy cigarettes, this shot focuses on the candy. The next shot focuses on Bushmill branding, really important. And then the next has both in focus. So if you look to the right, I shot this at f2.8 and this one at 1.2. This one I just kept at 2.8 because I wanted a little bit more depth. So you see a little bit more of the branding on the candy package. These are all shot with available light. Often when I show up at a job before it's dark, or any time in general, I like to shoot with available light. So I'm just going to go through these. They had various cocktails. Now, I'm really familiar with these images, and so I'm not even going to mark that, even though it's a nice image, because I know I've got better versions. If anyone's watching, if you could just let me know that you hear me and everything's working as it should, let me know, please. So, starting off, it's pretty boring stuff, right? You're just getting all the details. You're going to do two things when you show up. You're going to get details, and you're going to get, just the ambient environment. You want to get the environment, but often when you're scheduled, they may still be setting up. If they're still setting up, then you really want to focus on detail shots until they're completely ready to go. One of the things on the list were the actors and bartenders all dressed to part. The idea behind this event would be, so Bushmills created, and I might not be as precise as I'd like to be here. It's either the oldest continually operating Irish whiskey distillery or whiskey distillery in general, or maybe in Ireland. I'm not sure. I forgot. It was said multiple times, but I was in photographer mode, not, active participant mode. I got a lot of shots of every drink that would be served, the Irish whiskey, and just to finish the thought, this is a collaboration between Bushmills, Irish whiskey, who came out with a new product, which is a recipe based on, it's a prohibition recipe. And so there's a tie-in going on with Peaky Blinders. And so everything is meant to reflect that, from the drinks to the branding. They converted a local bar in, I think I was in West Hollywood. They converted it to look a lot like the bar in Peaky Blinders. They requested one of each cocktail with the bottle. I did a few different looks until I got one I really liked, but also to give them options. I kind of liked On the Barrel the most. Probably like this one the most right here. I lit this actually with just the continuous light on my Godox flash. It did a good job. And pure Nordic vibe. Can you just confirm you hear me and there's no technical issues? I liked the original shots I got, but these I feel like were the shots I really was happy with. Everyone's still setting up. This is some of the team involved. So, like I've said on my channel, you want to tell a visual narrative, and that means getting establishing shots, wide shots, and then gradually moving in. You don't have to shoot in that order. You just want to get it so that if someone were to put a collection of images together to tell the story, to recap the event, that they have everything necessary. I actually found that the work in general, I should say actually, so here's more branding. In general, the stuff in the beginning of a job is often the least interesting. Once things start really filling in, you start getting much more interesting images. I don't recall why I kept so many versions of the same shot. I was on a really fast deadline, somewhat self-imposed. I've been working so much, and if you look over here, like, these aren't even all of my June jobs because I've been editing on my desktop and then transferring over to an external hard drive, and I've been shooting a lot. So when I'm shooting this much, I do pressure myself quite a bit to just make sure I'm getting everything done before the next job. I don't like being backed up. Once I'm shooting a job, I don't like having last week's job to still edit. So generally, I've been good about this for the last couple of months and just have been really on top of it. I don't know how sustainable it is, but I've been doing it. And that's why I have not been posting. I haven't been posting to YouTube because, I've said it before, most of you know, I'm a working photographer. I make my living that way. I don't make much on YouTube. It's hard for me to prioritize. It's like a passion project, kind of. Go with that one. But when it comes to like real life decisions, you know, I have to choose work, of course. Okay. I'm gonna hold off a little bit on talking about why the aesthetic of the images, how I shot it, what choices I made, both in how I shot it and how I did the edit. I'm holding off because we'll let the stream fill up a bit. So yellow is a marker I use for images I don't delete. So here's me, just for fun. So their shot list included things like, back to that, the different drinks, drinks on the bar, branding, just capturing the overall environment, try to make it look like an old-timey bar, etc. They had at least 2 events as well. One was in New York and the one I shot in LA. And I actually got to see what the other photographer captured prior to doing the LA event, which was interesting. It's interesting seeing how another photographer captures the same event. So, candid moments, ideally in an event like this, are going to be incorporating some branding, etc. So you do have the drinks here, you know, and he's in an outfit. It works, right? I think it was election day when I shot these. If you look closely, I think that's what that is. An I voted symbol sticker. So it's something to keep in mind, but it doesn't mean you can't shoot cool, candid moments. And by the way, Pure Nordic Vibe, thank you for confirming that my audio is good. This is a tricky one because, like, maybe normally I'd be like, ooh, that's a good shot. I marked it right now, but I know it's not going to make it onto even an Instagram post. I've got much better work down the pipeline here. Like, it looks much better. So here I shot a few because the TV screen was changing, and you just never know what your client might hope you got. They might hope you got a shot of the Irish whiskey or Bushmills, you know? Okay, let's talk about a little bit now more about the edit, how I chose to quote stylize my images, etc. But first, let's back up and talk about stylizing in event photography in general. In general, I think it's the worst idea possible. Don't do it. You have to remember this is a job, it's not your personal art project, and you need to deliver a product that works for your clients. Now, I'm not saying this entirely across the board. There is a time and place for stylizing images, but generally what I'm personally shooting, and if we kind of go back into the library, none of these jobs, except for this one, would be suitable for any type of stylizing. Amplify Pitch Day, Standard Conference, BizFed Busy Awards, another kind of award show, conference-like job. California Mortgage Relief, like a press event. El Camino College graduation, a political event, an event I shot for American Heart Association, another event that was pretty much speakers on stage, etc. And this one was actually, I might share this at the end if I'm not too burnt out and I have time. MG Mag, something a little bit different than what I normally do, and I really enjoyed it. It was a referral. A friend of a friend needed someone, and I decided to do it. It's an editorial shoot for a magazine. Something I'm very capable of doing, but I'm not gonna lie. I've really gotten comfortable, and I'm making a good living now off shooting events, so I'm not like typically looking to branch out or shoot anything I used to. Okay, so back to stylizing. Here, the work needs to be usable for their intended purpose. And even if you stylize it and it works for maybe their Instagram post, it might not work for everything, and it might not match other images that other photographers have stylized. You want to have something pretty neutral. However, this client actually wanted something that was like reflected the aesthetics of Peaky Blinders. The exact quote was that it would be a buzzy event that represented Peaky Blinders aesthetics and prohibition in general. And this way I decided to do that is to shoot with as much available light as possible, to kind of try to retain a moody look, to be okay with that tungsten kind of lamp lit image, and to blend my flash in a way in which it looks almost ideally like there was no flash fired. So for example, like this shot. And the way I do that is I shoot at a proper exposure, or no less than maybe -1 of a proper exposure. And then what I'll do is I'll use my flash to kind of just improve the quality of the light on my subject matter. If you're curious about what, that you can go much more into this, I really recommend watching my flash photography video. I talk a lot more about how to make your flash look natural. But things like always bouncing it off a corner so it strafes across the scene, that kind of thing, is all going to help. And then the other thing I did, other than like those techniques, is when appropriate, I used a mist filter to get a natural kind of look, to not just throw on some cheesy filter, vintage quote filter. Rather, I used a mist filter, mist filter, which I realized is essentially just if you want to do a digital version, which I then did do on top of that. It's very subtle, but by using the dehaze filter, slider, which is something we're normally going in this direction, right, when we're backlit, by going -10, it's something I just kind of stumbled upon, or intuitively I understood it would do it. You kind of flatten out the image, and it does match the TV show Peaky Blinders a bit more. I didn't watch that much of it, but I do my research before these jobs. I'll watch like highlight videos and that kind of thing, and it's pretty much a very hazy aesthetic with some desaturation, a lot of shallow depth of field. And so, yeah, I really think the mist filter, along with just playing around with different levels of different extremes of the dehaze slider, I was able to get that. So here's a before and after. The mist filter it works best, and in fact it kind of doesn't seem to do much at all unless you're doing it using it when it works best, and that is when you have something backlight. I love the look when I get like a bare bulb in the background. Hopefully we'll find one of those. Before and after, and you can see if I put the dehaze back at 0, the difference. So I'll do that one more time. a good example of, you know, really working to get it, that balance of doing a good edit, but also getting your client the images in time. Sometimes I will end up with 3 images that honestly could have just been 1. There's no reason to have all 3 of these. I was experimenting a little bit here with a longer shutter. Here's the before and after of that one. I didn't do much actually. Here I kind of was using this as an opportunity to experiment with with the filter and without, but because there's no way to tell you when I had the mist filter on, I can't really say which was with it and without, because sometimes it's so subtle. I think this one, for example, here, I had it on. So I'm seeing a comment from, I don't know how you say it, Fozmat. I don't have an exact process. I work very intuitively actually, but generally I'm making sure the exposure is spot on. And if we're talking about like the process I have for the entire edit or like an individual photo, clarify for me and then I'll answer. These I shot from like getting up high and just kind of picking people out in the crowd. I thought that was interesting. These two had both like done their nails. I try to get everything naturally. But an event like this, like I said earlier, it's about branding, right? Detail shots aren't needed. They're important. But even better than detail shots are those interactive detail shots, people interacting with the product. And sometimes coaching someone a little bit is totally okay. I try to get it naturally, but if I don't, that's okay. Or if I want to do a specific shot. So here's an extreme example, because it was so underexposed. I was just playing around with this image where I really pulled the dehaze slider all the way to the left. Okay, so you're clarifying for each individual photo. Often I do almost nothing, I'm not going to lie. If you shoot something correctly, if you shoot it well, mostly everything I do as a batch is going to kind of take care of the individual photo. So when I'm talking about what I do as a batch, Command A, after I do my first culling, so I'll just cull down, and I'll do that 2 to 3 times, twice usually in the front, and then 1 more time right before I do export, just to see. Being a little bit removed from the images helps, so if I have time and I sleep on it, I'll cull once more the next day and then export. But so the batch stuff I'm doing is simple. I am sharpening at some level, usually like a medium level. I'm adding contrast plus 15, and then I go back and tweak each one individually. And I change my color space. Usually, not always, for these images I found Adobe Color worked better, but usually I'm switching to Camera Faithful because I like that more accurately reflects the way the Canon files would look. And thank you. I'm glad you like the images. They get much better, I think, as we progress. So here again, this is like it's kind of a nothing image, to be honest, but I just like the aesthetic. I'm just gonna be honest. So you can see, like, when it's really underexposed, you can pull that dehaze, and it just kind of like really bumps a lot of the mid-tones, etc. up. Here I'm most certainly using that mist filter. So here's a good example of like my approach to using Flash, because this was not purely ambient. And then like so if you look here, actually I'm trying to remember, this might actually be purely ambient. I don't remember right now, but here's a standard Flash photo without, doing a good job of balancing it. But I just needed to quickly grab a wide shot with my 5D. And you can see, like, a second later, I shot this with my R6, which I can't recall at the moment if I had a flash on it as well. Let's see, it should say flash fired, right? I don't remember where it says that. I never really have to check for that, but anyway, this is not good. This is not what you want to go for. So one of the important things to capture was a private tasting, and this is in a back room. And this gentleman is just kind of explaining the different whiskeys they have, and people are tasting them. One thing that was by the way, I'm not sure, maybe someone will recognize him. I think that's an actor. I'm not sure though. That I've seen before. But so yeah, I'm just getting shots of people doing that. Very important. So there you go. That's a good example of how much I've changed. Most images you won't see that big of a difference. So I'm considering this a rough selection. I'm going to go back when I'm not streaming and I can really pay attention and not have to talk. And I will then narrow down my selection for what I want for social media. If I ever want to do like a blog post or something like that. If I want to use it in a future video. So again, I'm shooting it right so it doesn't require too much of an edit. It's a lot of things I'm doing that give it looks as is. I think like I stylized it in the edit, but I actually did not. I used a mist filter. I shot wide open with my lens, and I I was very careful about balancing how I balanced my flash with the ambient light, which usually means, again, setting my exposure to more or less get the shot I want, to more or less get maybe like a -1 exposure, and then adding flash in to just kind of fill in the light, to light my subject, to improve the quality of the light. So, sometimes when you use that mist filter, it does appear a little bit less sharp. I'm not zooming in to show you. Zooming in not to show you the comparison, but that you're not going to get like the sharpest images, but that is not everything. All right. I didn't know you could retract a message, but I see you retracted a message. So, this particular whiskey, what is it? 28-year-old. It's a 28-year-old whiskey. I think it like retails for $2.50 for a pour. I don't drink much, so I don't know if a pour is the same as like a shot worth. I don't know, but you know, I asked at the end of the event, I'm like, oh, we just need a couple of shots of the 28-year-old, so we could, you know, photograph it, but really because I wanted my videographer to be able to taste it. So these I wasn't prepared for, but I luckily got a few okay shots of it. So we were finishing up in that back room tasting, and then like I heard a commotion and I quickly ran out to try to grab these shots. I can't recall which one I knew I wanted to use. Probably that one. No, and if you watch any of my flash videos, I almost will never shoot in manual. I'm not saying I don't ever. I really think you have to be able to adapt and improvise, and if you understand how lighting and flash work, you don't have to follow any set like technique or rules or anything. You can kind of improvise and make any situation work ideally. So here you can see even when I'm like end up really underexposed, when you bump everything up and you slide the dehaze, you can get a cool like smoky kind of look. I intentionally left or warmed these to kind of, again, match the aesthetic they were looking for. That's a tough one to choose between. Let's see. For now, we'll get them both. These aren't great. One downside of like shooting with a prime in a really tight space, I generally make it work. But like these, I wish I could have pulled out a little bit but I wasn't able to. You know, I was shooting with my 50 prime at this moment. I still love the shot, even though it's a bit tight. Photo booth was a big request. They really wanted coverage of that. For these wide shots, I'm okay with like a wide shot bumping up the ISO really high in order to get it. I shot with what I happen to have, and that would be it's the 17-40. You can see up here on my 5D Mark III. I bumped it up to ISO 4000, which is generally above what I like to shoot at. I'm fine with 3200 on that camera, but for a wide shot like this, I'd rather just get it. For anything it's going to be used on, that's fine. So these are some video clips. So like I mentioned at the top, I hired a videographer, a guy I've worked with quite a bit. He's really good. But for fun, toward the end of the night, when I knew I had everything I wanted, I shot as well. Some video. These I knew I wasn't going to get a shot I liked quality wise. But when someone's like, hey, can you get a shot of us? And, you know, it's too crowded at this point for me to say, okay, we need to move to here or there to get the shot. You know, you make do. This guy was great. He was a ham, but really played ball, like really made sure we got interesting shots. We staged a few things or asked him, oh, can we just get some video footage of you making a drink, that kind of thing. I like a few. I don't know why I marked that to not deliver. But anyway, I really enjoyed shooting these and just filling the frame. Here's the before and after. So you guys can see, very little was done. The settings are blurry. Blurry or small? Is the screen blurry? Can you see the photos okay? I don't know why the settings would be blurry. And I assume you mean like... Do you mean the camera settings up top? Do you mean for how I altered them? My edit? This was a fun crowd, this group. If any of you are watching and you want to be friends with me, let me know. I might crop this a little differently later. Again, if you're on my Patreon page, if you're one of my supporters, I actually post this. I already posted this entire job, everything I delivered, so you can actually see it and follow along that way. Or after the video, if you want to take a look. And on Smug Mug, you can actually see settings. So if anyone wants to see camera settings, that kind of thing, you should be able to there. So this is perfect. I didn't have to ask them, but they're just holding the drink. Okay, that was it. So what I'll do is I'm gonna do a slideshow. I think I'm gonna when I'm not streaming, I'm going to take a look at these again, maybe tweak them, narrow them down further, etc. And then you guys should be able to see that on Instagram in the next couple of days. I really am hoping that I will be able to make a full video, not a live video, but normal video pretty soon. But I have to wait until I have the time, and I just haven't had the time, as I mentioned. So let's pull up all of my preliminary selects. Okay. And we'll do a slideshow, which in the past took forever, but now I'm on my new computer. And look at that. It took like hours before. And while that's playing, I'm going to just answer any questions. There aren't too many. Looks like there's just 2 people watching. That's okay. Alright. The photos are clear, but the sidebar is impossible to read. So it's too small. Yeah, that makes sense. There's not much I can do here. I did my best to kind of